What's happening, y'all? Welcome in. Rivals down south just had to go show blue corner, red corner what was up a second ago. Again, the Big Ten, top heavy week, the fourth highest rated conference of the Power Five. Who remains number one according to all analytical models? The SEC. What do we do here on Rivals Down South? We break down the SEC. I'm your host, T-Bob Hebert, joined by the SEC legend, a man whose resume is long and distinguished, the XFL's all-time leading passer, and now current Cincinnati Bengal, AJ McCarron. AJ, what's up, man? I know your life is insane right now. Quick check-in. How's everything going in Cincy?
It's going good. Just busy. We had a tough loss yesterday, or I should say on Sunday, but we're getting back into the swing of things. We just got to figure out what's right and keep progressing.
Well, you look around the SEC right now, and there's a lot of teams that have got to figure out what's right. One thing the Big Ten boys were not wrong about is the fact that it is a relatively weak year, right? You've seen a lot of out-of-conference losses that you're not used to seeing recently. I mean, when you look at the Heisman Trophy, that's an award that has been dominated by the SEC as of late. And I think there's actually some interesting value to be gained from the exercise. Okay, let's look at the conference right now and who is the legitimate Heisman leading candidate from the conference? And I mean, look, okay, let's start at running back, right? Ray Davis from Kentucky is very good, but is nothing overwhelming that's going to win that award. Luther Burden from Mizzou, Xavier Legette from South Carolina, Malik Neighbors. These are three of the top five receivers in the country statistically, but it took Devontae Smith basically rewriting the record books to break through as a wide receiver. Dallas Turner's fourth in the country with 5.5 sacks. But AJ, I saw Will Anderson 2 years ago go to 17.5 sacks with 33.5 TFLs and still not get the Heisman Trophy. So 5.5 ain't going to cut it. And then it's like, okay, well, the only position that can really win this award anyway nowadays is quarterbacks. Well, surely the best conference in the entire country has a quarterback. I mean, we've seen Bryce Young recently, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones was in New York, right? Like Joe Burrow winning the Heisman. Surely there's someone, and no, not really. I mean, Jaden Daniels would be your best bet. You see the chart right there. Brady Cook is I love Brady Cook from Mizzou. I can't wait to watch Jaden Daniels, Brady Cook go against each other this weekend, but Brady Cook's story is nice. It's not Heisman. Now, Jaden's numbers are he's fourth in the country yards per game, second in touchdowns, fourth in the nation in rating, but the Tigers are 3-2. They are wasting a Jaden Daniels New York City season. Aaron or AJ, do you see getting my SEC quarterbacks mixed up? Do you see anybody in the SEC right now that could potentially take home college football's biggest trophy?
Yeah, like you said, T-Bo, I think it's an up and down year. The only person I would argue for right now, 4 or 5 games into the year, just watching them, is Brock Bowers because of what Brock means to that team. Regardless of whether you put him there or not, I mean, the dude's probably going to be a top 5 pick when he comes out for the NFL draft, and he's an unbelievable difference, maker on the field when he's on. And Georgia, for them to continue their success throughout the season, they're going to, need to get Brock the ball as much as possible.
That's a great answer, AJ, because like you said, so Brock plays a position that doesn't traditionally win it and hasn't won in a while, but that could actually help him. If he's the main driving force behind the number one team, that would certainly help. What about when you're an elite quarterback? Because look, I got 3 kids. I know you got a bunch as well. My middle child loves her blankie. Gotta have it. It's I've always felt like a great tight end is a bit like a blankie for a quarterback, right? It makes them feel good when they need something to fall back on. Is that accurate? Like, what is it about having a guy like Bowers that is different than having a great wide receiver or a great running back?
Oh, 100%. Because if you can have mismatches with a tight end with a linebacker, teams that want to play you man-to-man, it makes for unbelievable mismatches, and it always is in your favor, right? So, hey, this team is a big man team, especially on third and six or less. They're gonna play man, whether it's just straight up man, two man, one robber, one hole, like. And they try to figure out, all right, are we going to match him up with a linebacker, or now are we going to put a safety on him who's a little more athletic but more undersized? That's what makes it tough for the defense and makes it, swing into your favor as an offense big time.
So it's a matchup game at the end of the day. And speaking of some of the most historic matchups in conference history, AJ, it looks like Hugh Freeze let something slip. This comes from next round. I can't remember, or it looks like that a touchdown club. But here's what Hugh Freeze had to say when addressing some of the Auburn faithful.
I'm pretty confident that the SEC is pretty solid on where we are, and I think they'll enjoy the new rivalries when they get to see Texas and Oklahoma, and among the great rivalries that we already have in our conference. And there'll be some. I'll miss playing Georgia every year because I just got to experience it for my first time, and I loved every minute of it other than the outcome. I loved competing against those type teams, and so there are some changes coming.
So Hugh Freeze accidentally letting it slip that the South's oldest rivalry may no longer be played on a year-to-year basis. AJ, this is okay. This is kind of crazy to me for a couple of reasons. First off, UGA and Auburn started playing football against one another in 1892. 1892. I have compiled a list of things that were not yet invented when they started playing football. The first zipper was made in 1893. The first X-ray was 95. Vacuum cleaner, 1899. Air conditioning, 1902. Crayons and teddy bears were 1900. Plastic was 1907. They had played this game for 15 years before plastic was invented. Then we get into radio, television, the internet, 2 world wars, sliced bread. Dude, we now walk around with the entirety of human knowledge in our pocket at all times, and all we use it for is to look at adult content and memes. And throughout it all, there's been Georgia and Auburn football. And now it's not going to happen every year, man. This kind of bums me out.
100%. Like they have to. The SEC is going to have to figure out how to keep these rivalries alive, and where you still play these games, especially like you said, Auburn, UGA, like Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Bama, LSU. Like you're going to have a list of rivalries that you have to keep in. Alabama,
Yep.
Tennessee is always huge. Like I don't see how you're going to be able to get rid of these games. But listen, the way college football is going, I don't know what to expect. And there's guys making more money in college now than there some guys in the pro. They have their hands full with this one.
Bro, we talked to our boy SEC Mike about it. Iamaleava, their 5-star quarterback, is legitimately on an $8 million deal in Knoxville right now. I know. Okay, look, I got the Iron Bowl, Georgia, Florida, Egg Bowl, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. Those are my must. Bama, Tennessee's on the edge. LSU, A&M, LSU, Bama. What do you think? If you're in the chat, youtube.com/watch stadium. What are the SEC rivalries that must be protected at all costs? And speaking of Florida, here to come our rivals down south. Florida's got some problems going down, and let's see who's to blame. More next here on Rivals.
everything that we do is always being evaluated, right? And I think one of the things that's challenging as a leader when you have a core responsibility, if things in that area can be done better, you got to be able to tell yourself the truth, if that makes sense. So, and I would tell you, I'm a lot more critical of myself than anybody on the outside is.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Rivals South. That was head coach Billy Napier asked about, what's going on in Florida right now. You're calling plays. The offense gets dominated last game. And should you continue to call plays? Napier basically says, look, we evaluate everything. I judge myself harder than anything else. And no, I think I'm doing fine. I think I'm going to continue to be at the head of this offense. How do you, and AJ, I know it's been crazy for you lately, right? So you're not able to dive into the film room and break down Graham Mertz's play, but Graham Mertz to me this year has been a weird bag where he's almost having these empty calorie games. Like the numbers look really nice. If you came out of, they lose 33-14 on Saturday, but his stat line, if you're just box score watching, looks really good. 65% completion, 240, it's like, okay. And then you look across the way, Devin Leary's awful, but Florida gets their ass kicked. So how do you evaluate what Billy Napier's doing with Graham Mertz, Florida? What do the Gators got to get fixed?
No, I mean, you're 100% right. When you look at Mertz's stats, 25 of 30, 244, 2 TDs and 1 interception, of course you don't want the 1 interception, but that 1 interception didn't cost them the game when you lose 33-14. So I don't know if it's so much of what Billy Napier is doing on offense as much as what are they doing on defense. When your opposing quarterback goes 9 of 20 for 69 yards, they only threw the ball for 69 yards in a SEC game, and you win by that much, and they dominated. So, we need to figure out the defensive side of the ball. Because if the defense is getting stops, well, then it doesn't put as much pressure on your offense, right? Your offense doesn't feel like every time they go out, they have to get a touchdown. Now it eases up the tension on everybody, and it's like, okay, well, if we end this series in a kick, like Saban used to always say, hey, if you end the series in a kick, you're fine, because that means you either kick the field goal or you punt it, right? So at least you're pinning them back, and you're playing the field position game. In that case, you're not getting any stops on defense. So all of a sudden your offense feels like every time we touch the ball, we have to go score 6. We have to. We have no other option. So listen, I love Coach Napier, was with him for many years, but I don't think the play calling is the issue. I think they need to figure out the defensive side of the ball.
Well, and it's kind of crazy that you say that, AJ, because everything you just said was correct. But then we just had the graphic on the screen where they're last in points per game, last in yards per game, at the bottom in third down percentage. So there's a lot wrong with Florida right now. And I'm glad. I mean, look at that right there. Third down percentage last, plays of 20 yards last. So not explosive, 11th in rush yards, 8th in pass. So there's a lot that's gone better now. But the Napier thing, so you have firsthand experience with Napier. I do somewhat when he was over here in Louisiana at UL Lafayette. He was good. Do you know how hard it is to win at UL? Especially, this sounds dumb, but especially when oil's not good. Everything in Louisiana is oil-based. When oil's up, everything is down, it's bad. Even, irrespective of the OPEC prices, he was turning in 10-win seasons. I thought that he was going to be a guaranteed success in Florida, and it's one of those, you just never know. You never know who's going to translate. Why did it work at this job and it didn't work as that job? And I don't know. I mean, look, here's CFB expert in the chat says, same thing as every other year with the Gators, a big win here or there, then a bunch of disappointment. That wasn't the Gators when me and AJ were in our prime. They were fighting for national championships year in and year out, putting out some of the most talented teams in the entire country. And yet it feels like for about a decade now, that's kind of who they've become. And if I don't know what the fix is, because I don't know. I mean, do you just make another quick coaching change? That seems a bit too reactive, and it's not going to solve the problem either.
No, and I totally agree. You know, putting up the stat line right there, and them being last in a lot of categories, or the bottom half especially. But I still think as a play caller, it takes weight off your shoulders, right? When you know your
Mhm.
defense is playing well, now you're not pressing as a play caller. Now you're not worried
Yeah.
about, hey, first down efficiency has to be on point every time. Like we have to at least get 4 to 5 yard pop on first down. Okay, now if we get a 2 yard gain, it's okay. Like I can still stick to my game plan. I can still call what I want. But all of a sudden, when you go down in these games and you're allowing, Kentucky's running backs 26 carries for 280 yards, and they're eating up the clock. Like when they're eating up the clock and they're running the football like that, like it changes your game plan because all of a
Yeah.
sudden now you have to throw the ball. Now you're stuck in long third down situations. Like I mean, as an offense playing offense as well, like when you're third and 7 plus, like it's hard because everybody in the stadium knows you have to throw the football. And it's never fun as a play caller. It's never fun as a quarterback when you know that.
Well, it's hard, AJ, unless you go against LSU, you know? Then I think you got like a 60, according to the season, you got like a 65% chance of getting it done. But no, I've seen the amount of pressure that a bad defense can apply to a great offense this year, where if LSU has like one incompletion, it's like, okay, there you go. That's the game. And so with LSU's fall in the West, there's kind of been another rise. First off, Alabama's figuring it out, okay? But they're matching up with A&M this weekend. And I'm not saying that Bobby Petrino is still a genius or at the forefront of offensive theory or anything, but he has been an unqualified success at A&M this year. Again, it's not to say that they're one of the best offenses in the country, but compared to what they were under Jimbo, they are much more functional this year. The fourth highest scoring offense in the SEC right now. What have you seen out of Petrino combining with Wigman and now Max Johnson taking over at quarterback? What have you seen out of this Aggie offense?
Well, I definitely think Coach Petrino coming in and I'd put the last 2 weeks of success, right? Because before the last 2 weeks, people were still talking about A&M like, hey, how are they going to be able to get out of this Jimbo Fisher contract, right? Like, are they
Yep,
going to have to
true.
pay out millions and millions of dollars? And then it's kind of the whole attitude around A&M has shifted in the last 2 weeks, right? So I think this is a big week for them and Coach Petrino's offense, and now having Max Johnson there, who is playing well. I mean, he played well the other night, 17-28, 210 yards, 2 TDs, had an interception. But I think you can see the experience with Max Johnson and Coach Petrino trusting him in play calling a lot more, now than he did a couple weeks ago. So, and listen, it's a big week for them. Can they get it done? For whatever reason, Jimbo, as of late, has had Coach Saban's number a couple times. So I think
Oof.
there's still some bad blood there, and I'm excited for this game.
Absolutely bad blood. Also, if you are a struggling coach in the SEC, beating Nick Saban is a panacea for everything. You beat Nick Saban and everybody loves you. It doesn't matter. So there is so much on the line for both teams this weekend at College Station. It's going to be incredible. I cannot wait. We'll continue to break it down all week long here on Rivals. But coming up next, yesterday, me and SEC Mike told you we don't think Georgia deserves to be the number one team in the country anymore. And y'all had some thoughts. Let's get to them next here on Rivals Down South. Welcome back to Rivals Down South. T-Bob Hebert and the legend A.J. McCarron, current Cincinnati Bengal. That's right, A.J. playing in the NFL and still taking time out of his schedule to be here on Rivals. Yesterday, he's at practice with me and SEC Mike said, look, we don't think that Georgia should be the number one team in the country anymore. Okay, they look fallible. Objectively, I don't think they're the best team in the country. Kentucky Bros said, quote, of all weeks to give Georgia motivation, I'm going to need y'all to stop it. That's right, Big Blue and, well, the red and black machine going up against each other. Bask in the South said, I get the vote on this year mantra, but they still have a ton of coaches and players on the roster that are two-time defending champs, and they're undefeated. Style points don't count. They're number one until they get knocked off. And finally, our guy Nolan Hawley, who's a proud chatter. Shout out Nolan. Quote, these guys should be thanking Stetson Bennett for giving them a grandfathered ranking. AJ, you didn't get to weigh in on it. From what you've seen, would you have the Bulldogs number one in the country right now?
Yeah, for me, listen, I'm like, I can't remember one of the viewers said, but for me, I've always been, hey, they're number one until they get knocked off, especially if you put them number one, preseason ranking, then somebody has to beat them, or they have to really struggle versus a weak team. Listen, I know people, want to knock Auburn, and I don't think Auburn's the best by any means. I mean, they're definitely building to what Hugh Freeze wants them to be, but it's still a rivalry game. And those games, as you know, as a player, like, they're always tough. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter if we played Auburn, and they were just 0-10 when we faced them. Like, it still came down to the last 4 minutes of the game. So that for them, that's a big game. For both fan bases, it's a big game. So I still think Georgia's the number one team in the country.
So it's fair to still have them ranked as number one. And I'm with you. Like a lot of Georgia fans, I think were expecting me to crap all over the Auburn win. No, you're going into Jordan Hare against a salty defense, and you're coming out with a win. Like, that's really impressive. World's Oldest Rival, they played 120-some times. Here's maybe a different way to frame this question, though, AJ. After what you've seen through these first 5 weeks, do you think Georgia still wins this national championship?
I think that's a great question, T. But I think it depends who's the 4 spot. If they're one going into the playoffs, who's in the number 4 spot. I think that has a lot to do with it and how they match up with that opponent. But would I bet on it? And would I want them to? No, because I don't want them to be the first to win 3 in a row in a long time. So.
Yeah, never been done in the AP era, which, again, like, just trust in math. Like, the law of averages should look, I would take Michigan to beat them right now because I think J.J. McCarthy's a bit better than Carson Beck. I'm borderline taking Texas, and then I have like a handful that I think could, right? But I don't know. And then Alabama, we'll see. AJ, thank you so much, man, for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule. We'll be back with more Rivals Down South tomorrow. See y'all then.